Hi everybody, this is George with Oak Studios, and today I'm going to do a tutorial on lighting, and I'm going to show you how to go from this to this. This is part of our Robot and the Ant behind the scenes, so let's get started. Here's 3D Studio Max, here's the camera view. The first thing you want to do is make sure you're using real world units. So go to Customize, Unit Setup. I use a metric system myself, and in the system unit setup, make sure you're using these parameters. 99% of the time, it should be this. If not, just change it. This is just so your lights can behave properly. The second thing you want to do is make sure you're using Mental Ray rendering. And right now, it's set to default scanline render. Just change it to NVIDIA Mental Ray. The next thing you want to do is make sure you're using Mental Ray textures. The robot takes the majority of the frame, and the texture is a glossy plastic from the Arch and Design. It's right here, glossy plastic. And finally, what you want to do is you want to turn exposure control off. Okay, so now let's do a quick render, see what this looks like. I'm going to speed up the rendering a little bit. Okay, so here it is. This is what it looks like with no lights applied. It doesn't look bad, actually. It looks pretty good. It's just kind of flat. You know, there are no shadows. I'm going to save this as original. Save. And I'm saving it as a PNG. Okay, first thing you want to do is go to your lights, go to skylight, add a skylight in the scene. It doesn't matter where you put in the scene, it affects it all equally. Change it to 0.11. And because it's supposed to be a sunset type situation, let's make it a little kind of light orange color. And the second thing you want to do is add another light, this time an MR area spot. Like I like to call it, Mr. Area Spot. Now right now the light is pointing away, so what you want to do is you want to select the target, go to your align to the character's head, because this is the area you want to illuminate. And since this light is simulating the sun, I'm going to move it far away. Move it up. I'm going to move the target a little bit lower. Now for the settings, I'm going to change the intensity to 10. Make this an orange color. And the decay, I'm going to do inverse square. And let's render. See what this looks like. Okay, so you can see here's a little bit overexposed. We're getting there. It's just a little too much. So I'm going to make some changes here to the light. Push it a little bit farther away just to lower the intensity. Maybe a little bit to the side. A little bit higher. And let's render again. Okay, so the render is done. The exposure I think is better. It's just a little bit more to the side. I want to have more light on the eyes. So what I'm going to do is just move the light a little bit more towards the face. Just a little bit more, just to give it more illumination. Let's take a look. Let's render again. Okay, the render is done. I like this a lot better. you know, the shadows aren't covering the pupils. It has a nice exposure. Next, what we're going to do is going to add one more light. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of the key light. Make a copy. We're going to turn it around, kind of to the side. This is a rim light or a side light. I'm going to change the color to a light blue. And I'm going to change the intensity to 2. And now we're going to render to see what this looks like. Okay, the render is done. I like the blue. It gives it a nice highlight and it's contrasts with the orange. And I think this is working really well. This is the famous blue and orange Hollywood look. And the reason it works is because of the contrast of the colors. Now we're going to add just one more thing. And that is a pin light. So what I'm going to do is go back to light. I'm going to select an Omni light, place it in the scene, and with the align, put it right to its eyes. And the changes are, I want to make a multiplier of 1, make it white, and you want to change the attenuation. And the start is 0 and the final is 0.61. And now we're going to render. Okay, so this is the render and this is what it looks like now. I think it's too bright. It's just diffusing and diminishing a lot of the orange and the blue. So I'm going to make one change. I'm going to add shadows. And now let's render it again. Okay, here's the rendered image. I like the pin light. I like the highlights here. It's giving me a little bit of highlight. What a difference turning on the shadows makes. It really brings it to life. So I'm going to add another pin light to the other eye. Make an instance copy. The difference between the copy and instance is if you make an instance copy, whatever change you make on one affects the other. If you just make it a regular copy, if you change one, it doesn't affect the other. Since both of these lights are the same, I just do an instance copy. I'm going to make a slight change with this. I just make it a little bit here. Okay, let's render. Okay, the render is done. I like the pin lights. I like how it adds the highlights. I like how it adds highlights in the hand. So I'm going to save this as a PNG file. PNG, I'm going to save it. Call it as robot. Now the final step, you have to do something called the ambient occlusion pass. Now ambient occlusion is just a fancy term for shadows, nice shadows. So what we're going to do is, first you got to go to Material Editor, click on an empty slot, and select a mental ray material. Next, what you're going to do is change it to an ambient reflective occlusion material. You want to increase the samples. The samples dictate the quality. The higher the samples, the greater the quality. Let's go for 128. And we're going to change the name to AO for ambient occlusion. On your render setup, you're going to go to Processing, Material Override. This will override all the materials with whatever material you put in here. So you click Enable, drag the ambient occlusion, and there it is. And if we render, you'll see the effect. Okay, the render is done. You can see here it has nice shadows and it's really going to help bring the image to life. With the depth is going to add. So we're going to save it as robot AO. Okay, so now let's hop over to Adobe After Effects. Here you are in Adobe After Effects. I'm going to import the files. Now the original we're not going to use. This is for reference later. And the first thing we want to do is make a composition, the robot. Add your ambient occlusion on top. Layer, set it to blending mode to multiply. Now this is without, within. Now the ambient occlusion is a little too dark, so we're going to brighten it with effect, color correction levels. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter just to bring everything up. Okay, and we're also going to increase the levels of the base layer. Things a little bit brighter. Okay, now that this is done, we're going to pre-comp these. Pre-comp. There you go. This will make things easier to work with. The next thing you want to do is create a new layer, solid, black. Put it underneath. This is going to be our background, and you want to add a gradient. Ramp. Select the orange and then select the blue. Zoom out a little bit. I'm going to place these a little bit farther. This is our background. Okay, the next thing you want to do is add a lens flare. Create another solid. This one on top. Click here, lens flare. Place it on top. Change it to 105mm prime. You're going to put it outside the image, but now also we're going to color correct this. So effect, color correction, hue saturation, colorize. I want to make it an orange, really saturated orange. Increase the brightness a little bit. I'm going to put this outside the frame. And now you go layer, blending mode, screen. So it just gives it a nice haze. Let's make it a little bit, oh, too much. There it goes, zoom out a little bit. It's a little overexposed here. Just down a little bit, just like that. Gives a nice haze to the image. Finally, want to add some highlights here. So you click back on the pre-comp, CC, light sweep. There you go. So you can see here as the shaft of light that we don't want. So what we're going to do is lower the sweep because this is all we want, this edge. Make it a little bit bigger. Pick a color like a little bright orange. So maybe a little bit brighter, just to contrast a little bit. Change the width, the intensity. So now it's adding a nice edge. Copy. It's called the backlight. It's a little too strong down there, so I'm going to lower it a little bit. But the end is starting to be more prominent. That's good. Maybe it's a little too strong. Lower to maybe 170. Background a little. Keep that one. I'm going to add a third one. And there you go. Now, if you notice here, you can see the bottom that the light's leaking. And to fix that, all we have to do is make a copy, duplicate the original pre-comp layer, turn these off, mask, image, go to mask, subtract. And there you go. So now you have a nice highlight here. Still a little bit on the finger. Oh. Just gonna fix this finger here. See, the mask doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to mask the proper areas. So there we go. So now it's starting to look really good. The final thing I'm going to do is going to add a new adjustment layer. I'm going to effect, color correction, brightness contrast, lower the brightness, increase the contrast a little bit just to give it a little bit more punch. Maybe raise the brightness a little. And then effect, add vibrance to the image. Just add a little bit of vibrance just to give it a little bit more saturation. And that's it. That's our image. And if you can see from the original, that's what originally it was. And this is what it is now. So before and after. And this is it. This is the basic techniques that allowed me to create all these images. I'm also going to make the After Effects file available for download at the Robot and the Ant website. So just check out robotandtheant.com where you can find the After Effects file and check out our short film, The Robot and the Ant. Thanks for watching.